So on the PERT, you have multiple choice like this. I'll unfreeze the screen. Number 1, I see we have parentheses. C plus 4 minus 3C minus 2 equals 0. We're going to solve for the letter C. Do I need these parentheses? Just Alana? Do I need the parentheses? No. So I could actually get rid of them. So C plus 4 minus 3C minus 2 equals 0. If there was a negative in front, you would need to distribute the negative. Otherwise, there's no need for the parentheses. What do we do from here? Combine like terms. What like terms do we have?
3C and C.
C and negative 3C. What is C minus 3C? Negative 2C. You're good. And then 4 minus 2. Positive 2. And all of that equals 0. How do I finish solving? Subtract the 2. And I'll have minus 2C equals negative 2. Divide by negative 2, and C equals 1. So 1. If I didn't know how to solve this, how could I use the answers to solve it instead? I could what? I could plug them in. If I plugged in 1 everywhere I saw a C, so I'd plug in 1 plus 4 minus, what's 3 times 1? 3. Minus 2 equals 0. We do parentheses. What's 4 minus 3? Well, actually, you don't even need the parentheses anymore. We're just going to go left to right. What's 1 plus 4? 5. Minus 3? 2. Minus 2? 0. Does 0 equal 0? Yes. So either way you had solved it, you could have plugged it in, or you could solve it like normal. Always use your answers to your advantage. In number 2, what do we end up doing? We're going to plug in. We're going to plug in negative 4 everywhere we see an X, and plug in a 5 everywhere we see a Y. So 2 times negative 4 times 5 squared minus 3 times negative 4 times 5 and then minus 7. So what do we do first? There's a lot of numbers.
You multiply something classically.
I don't multiply first. The exponent first, because we're doing PEMDAS.
Well, you're multiplying 5 times 5.
Technically, yes. But we're going to do exponents first. So we're going to leave the 2 and the negative 4. But what is 5 squared? 25. And then just copying everything else down. All right, and then when I multiply, I'm going to multiply each of these pieces. Does it matter which order I multiply in? No. I'm going to multiply negative 4 times 25. What is negative 4 times 25? Negative 100. Negative 100 times 2 is negative 200. Negative 4 times 5 is negative 20. Times negative 3 is positive 60.
Well, then wouldn't the 200 be positive?
It would not. This had 1 negative and 2 positives. This one has 2 negatives and a positive. You're good. All right, and then it doesn't matter what order you add and subtract in. Minus 200 plus 60. What do we get? They're different signs, so you find the difference. You subtract them. What's 200 minus 60? Negative 140. Minus 7, so what do we get?
Negative 147.
Negative 147, which would be the letter A. All right, number 3, graph the solution of y minus 2 is greater than 1. There is only one rule about inequalities. Does anybody remember the special rule about them?
You flip the thingy.
When do we flip the sign?
You divide by a negative.
When we divide by a negative. So if you divide both sides by a negative, then you flip the sign. That means it would go from less than or greater than to less than, and vice versa. So in number 3, how do I get y by itself? Add 2. So I keep my sign, y is greater than 3. So keep in mind, if you have greater than or less than, that would be an open circle. If you have greater than or equal to or less than or equal to, it will be a closed circle. So since it's not or equal to, you're right, it's either B or it's D. But we also need to graph at positive 3. So which one of the graphs is at positive 3? B. And it opens up to the right, just like the arrow points. In number 4, we do the same thing, similar at least. We got 5 minus 2x plus 7 is greater than or equal to 6. What do we do first? Combine like terms. 5 and 7 make 12. Minus 2x is greater than or equal to 6. Next.
Sure.
Yep, you're right. Justin, what do we do last? What do we do to finish solving for x? Divide by negative 2. But when we divide by this negative, we got to flip. And what's negative 6 divided by negative 2? 3. So, oops, what letter is that? It's B. So if you notice, 1 and 2, what were both of their answers? 1 and 2, they were A. 3 and 4, they were B.
So the next ones are C.
No, that's not what I'm saying. The left and right will be the same answer. I don't do this so you can cheat yourself and say, oh, well, if this answer was... It's so you can check yourself when you're doing these by yourself. If these two do not match up, if the answers are not the same, that means one of them is wrong. Okay, so it's not meant to trick you or anything. Yes, sir? You were just speaking.
B and D are the same.
B and D are the same?
Yeah.
All right, it's supposed to be negative. Sorry. This is supposed to be a negative. Good call. All right, let's look at our new notes. So you're going to take the sheet of paper that we had out, and I told you not to write on yet. You're going to call it factoring. Factoring notes. This is a review of Algebra 1.
I can't hear you.
All right, so we got 6x squared plus 6x, and minus 5x cubed plus 25x squared minus 10x. All right, in the first set, what number are both of these terms divisible by? 6. What letter are they both divisible by?
X.
When you divide out, does this poof away?
Nope. Yes. Well, only one of them does.
It does not. It will not.
Oh, no, it does. I'm sorry.
So 6x squared divided by 6x is x. What is anything divided by itself? 1.
Hey, I remember that from the time we
Proud of you.
so, thank you.
Because we just divided out. What is the opposite of dividing? Multiplying. So if we distributed back in, we should get back the original answer. If there was nothing here, there would be, you would not get the other answer. All right, in the next one, what number are we going to divide by? 5. What letter? X. And I want you to pause for a second. This is just a random math concept that it makes sense when we go to factoring. When you first wake up in the morning, should you have negative thoughts
Absolutely.
Yeah.
or negative experiences?
Yes. No,
What?
You don't.
Yeah,
Like,
you going to school.
Just say
what are you
no.
talking
You going to
about?
school to get this life.
I mean, it just depends.
Here's what I'm telling you. Here's what I'm telling you. The first thing when you wake up, you should have positive thoughts. So the first thing you should see is positive, not a negative. So you're not just going to divide out by 5x. You're actually going to divide out by negative 5x. Because this, a negative divided by a
First
negative,
one's negative, then you divide by.
we would divide by a negative. If the first sign is a negative, you divide by a negative. We're going to divide it and put it on the outside. What is negative 5x cubed divided by negative 5x? X squared. 25x squared divided by negative 5x. Negative 5x. And then negative 10x divided by negative 5x. Positive 2. And that's all you're going to do for that one. All right, so we're going to talk about factoring. Okay, factoring is the opposite of foiling. So what you did just do on a review quiz was FOIL, first, outer, inner, last. And you got something that looked like this. Now we're going to do the opposite. We're going to be given this piece, and you'll have to FOIL or factor it into this. The way that you can check yourself is by foiling. So when you get to the PERT, if you can't figure out how to factor something, there's a ton that you factor. Like on page 20, or not page 20, number 23 in this packet, things like that. You can always FOIL the answers and see if when you FOIL, you get the original problem. Okay, so you can always use factoring and foiling to help you solve in a multiple choice test. All right, so here's what you're going to write down first. ax squared plus bx plus c, and they're going to write an x. So those are two things you want to write. This is called the X method. Miss Johnson uses it. Mr. Okoson uses it. I believe even Miss Westcott uses it. Miss Midcalf used it. Well, don't let that deter you.
I never understood it just because
It is what it is. All right, so I know when you look at this, you're like, why are there more letters? What kind of satanic? No. So these letters represent numbers. Okay, so A is a number, B is a number, C is a number. So here's how you're going to use the X. The letter B, or the number B, will go in the top. So you want to write B in the top. And then A times C will go in the bottom. A times C. Then you want to think of this like a puzzle. Okay? You want factors of this number that add up to this number. So you want two numbers that multiply to get the bottom number, but they add up to get the top number. So factors mean two numbers that multiply together. I promise it will make sense in like 10 minutes. Okay? So factors are two numbers you multiply together. You're going to find two numbers that add up to that multiply to the bottom and add up to the top. Okay? I promise we will do it all together. Okay? So in our first example, x squared plus 6x plus 5, what is the B term?
6.
6. So 6 goes in the top. You what? Sorry, go ahead, Brad.
Okay, go ahead.
A times C goes in the bottom. What is A in this one?
1.
1. If there's nothing there, it's a 1. 1, and then C is 5. What's 1 times 5? 5. So we're finding factors of 5 that add up to 6. So two numbers that multiply to get 5, and two numbers that add to get 6. They're going to be the same two. What are the only factors of 5? 1 and 5. So positive 1 times positive 5 is positive 5. Positive 1 plus 5 is 6. So here are our factors. Your answer will look like this. X plus 1, X plus 5. Good. How could you check this?
You can FOIL.
You could FOIL. You should get the original answer. If you don't, then you're wrong, or maybe you're not good at foiling. I don't know.
At all.
All right, so I'm going to teach you some tricks to this. Okay, factors add up to, we just did that. If the second sign, so the first thing you want to look at is the second sign. If the second sign is positive, that means they will be the same signs. So both will be positive or both will be negative. I would write that down. If the second sign is positive, that means your factors will be the same sign. So that means they'll either both be positive or both be negative. So you look at the same sign. I'll explain why in a few seconds. To figure out if they're both positive or both negative, you'll look at the first sign. If the first sign is negative, they'll both be negative. If the first sign is positive, they'll both be positive. Okay, so second sign tells you whether they'll be the same or different. The first sign will tell you whether they'll both be positive or both be negative. We're going to do these two examples. You'll want to write them down. I only tell you these things to try to help you. Okay? You're welcome. Yep, we'll tell you. It's because I just fixed it between classes. Don't judge me. I'm not saying it's a competition. I'm just saying I could have. We're going to do this. X squared minus 10x plus 24. The second sign tells me that they'll be the same signs. The first sign tells me that they both will be negative. I'll explain why. What goes in the top of the x? Negative 10, because my b term. Negative 10. What goes in the bottom of the x? 24. So here is why we do what we do. Okay? We want to multiply to positive 24, but add up to negative 10. Here is why they're going to be the same sign and both negative. If they were both positive, is a positive times a positive? Yes. Does a positive plus a positive equal a negative? No. The same thing, if one of them were negative. What's a negative times a positive? A negative. That's not what we want. We want a positive. Okay, so that's why they both have to be negative, so that we can add up to a negative, and that we multiply to a positive. Okay, so that's why I'm teaching you the little pattern. You start with 1, and then we keep going with all of the factors. Go to 2 next. How many times does 2 go into 24? 12. Does 3 go into 24?
Yes.
Yes. 8. Does 4 go into 24?
Yes.
Yes. How many?
6.
Does 5 go into 24?
No.
No, and 6, we already have it. You don't need to write it twice. So you stop when you start repeating. Which one of these adds up to negative 10? Negative 4 and negative 6. So these are our two factors. Negative 4 and negative 6. They multiply to positive 24, but they add up to negative 10. So we write x minus 4, x minus 6. All right. In the second, they're going to be the same sign. This one's easy. They're the same sign, and what are they both going to be? Positive. Same sign, both positive. All right, so what goes in the top of the x? 11. What goes in the bottom? 18. So same sign, both positive. This is simple. We start with 1. 1 goes in 18. How many times is 2? 9. And then how many times is 3? 6. Does 4? No. Does 5? No. So which one of these adds up to 11? 2 and 9. They multiply to 18, they add up to 11. So we have x plus 2 and x plus 9. All right, so all of this was if the second sign was positive. So if the second sign is positive, that means they'll be the same sign. So what can you guess if the second sign is negative? They'll be different signs, okay? So negative means they're going to be different signs. So this one will be slightly different. You do want to write that down. The second sign, if it's negative, they'll be different signs. And the first sign will tell you what the bigger number is, or the larger number is. And then we have 2 examples. X squared minus 5x minus 36. And then x squared plus 5x minus 6. Alright, so I'll explain why this one is the way that it is. Alright, so I look at my second sign. It's negative. This means that they will be different signs. And the bigger one will be negative. So one of them will be positive, one of them will be negative. And in this case, the larger number will be negative. What number will go in the top of the x? Negative 5. And what number will go in the bottom? Negative 36. So they have to be different signs, because a positive times a positive will not make a negative. And a negative times a negative will not make a negative. So one of them's got to be positive and one of them's got to be negative. And our bigger one's going to have to be negative, because we want a negative outcome. We want it to add up to a negative number. Okay? So we start with 1 and negative 36. What's the next? Well, before that one. 2 and?
18.
2 and 18. You're good. She was saying 3 and 12. 4 and Yep, negative 9. 6 and negative 6, and then we stop. So we wanted a positive and a negative, so they multiply to a negative. The bigger number needed to be negative, so we add up to a negative. So which one of these adds up to negative 5? 4 and negative 9. So we're going to have x plus 4, x minus 9. So our second sign is a negative, so that means they're going to be different. But what would the bigger sign be? Positive. What will go on the top of the x? 5. And then the bottom? Negative 6. So they need to be different, so they multiply to a negative 6. But the bigger one needs to be positive, so we have a positive outcome. What's the first factor of negative 6? 1 and 6. So we need the 1 to be negative. And then negative 2 and 3. So which one of these actually adds up? 1 and 6. Because this is a negative 2. Pardon me? Alright, so negative 1 and positive 6. So we have x minus 1, x plus 6.
So the bigger number one?
The bigger one needs to be positive.
Oh, okay.
Because we need a positive 5. The bigger one needs to be positive. 3 is bigger than 2. So 3 needs to be positive and 2 needs to be negative. Yes, sir? No. I literally said no. So in our first one, our second sign is negative. So is that the same or different signs? Difference. And what will the bigger one be? Positive. From the top of the x? 3. What goes in the bottom? 18. Negative 18. So our bigger number is going to be positive, so our smaller number is negative. So our first set is negative 1 and 18. What comes after that? Negative 2 and 9. After that? Negative 3 and 6. So it's negative 3 and 6. I'm writing it in. Alright, here we go. Oops, I put the answer in the wrong spot. That's what happens when you're... That's what happens. I was doing it in a hurry. Whatever. Alright, this second problem, x squared minus 8x plus 12. Are we going to have same or different signs? Same sign. And they're both going to be negative. Alright, what goes in the top of the x? Negative 8, and then the bottom? 12. What's the first factor of 12?
1 times.
Negative 1, negative 12. Negative 2, negative 6. Negative 3, negative 4. Are there any others? No, because we'd start over. Alright, so which one of these add up to negative 8? Negative. I agree. X minus 2. X minus 6. Ta-da! Alright, so, factoring out the GCF, you want to always try factoring out the GCF? You cannot always use the X method. You can only use them on trinomials. How many terms are in a trinomial?
3.
3 of them, like we've been seeing, like on the last 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. However, there's only 2. You can't do it here. You could divide out a number that they have in common. Okay? Sometimes you have to do both. Sometimes you have to do both, like this one. This is the last problem we do together. 6v squared plus 66v plus 60. So what number are all three of these books?
6.
You knew the words that were coming out of my mouth. 6. When you divide something out, do you throw it away? No?
Probably not.
I don't throw you away, do I?
You should.
It's a little terrible. Alright, so when we go to do the X method, you only do what's inside of the parentheses. The 6 is divided out, so you don't really worry about it anymore. You do need to have it in the answer, but it's not going to help us factor. So when we go to set up our x, what is the b term that goes in the top? 11, and the c term, or a times c, which is 10. The only factors of 10 are 1 and 10, 2 and 5. Are they going to be the same sign or different signs? Same, and they'll both be positive. All right, so which one of these add up to 11? 1 and 10. So when you go to write your final answer, don't forget the 6, and then it's v plus 1, v plus 10. That's the answer.